All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming today. My name is Brandon Grant. I'm the Sales and Marketing Director here at QuoteWerks. Today we're going to be discussing and demonstrating your procurement process and basically answering the question, is your procurement process too complicated? Are there a lot of steps involved? So we're going to cover ways around that in QuoteWerks, how you can specifically use the QuoteWerks procurement module to hopefully alleviate a lot of these issues that you might have in your procurement process. For these webinars, we like to kind of go over the pain point, kind of what we're trying to solve, what we're trying to accomplish today, and then we'll go over the solution, and then we'll actually do a live demonstration of that solution so you can see it in real time. And then with any time that's left over, we will take questions and answers. For those of you that have just logged in, we are recording this webinar today, so if you came in late or you have to leave early or someone from your team couldn't make it, we'll be posting it on the website so you'll have access to that, and we'll make sure to email that link out, usually get them up in a couple of days. As always, make sure you are following us on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. We post a lot of our content there, so when we have webinars, when we have events, when we have new videos and feature releases and things like that, those are a great place to be notified of kind of what's coming out and what's going to be available soon. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive right in. So if you're new to the pain point webinars, we typically focus on a specific pain point that a lot of companies have or run into when they are creating quotes and proposals. So this one's going to focus specifically on procurement. And these are a lot of questions that we get from companies that are using QuoteWerks, where they're basically saying, hey, their PO process, their purchasing process is disjointed, it requires multiple steps. They have difficulty tracking orders. They have problem looking up past ordered items to get tracking numbers or serial numbers or anything like that. And it's a complex process typically, and it can be extremely time consuming. I know there's quite a few companies who have a procurement person. That is all they do because it is such a time consuming and complicated process. So we're going to work with you today and show you how you can hopefully simplify this kind of process in your business, with you in your company. So the first thing is simplify the PO process. So that purchase order creation, for those of you that are not aware, if you're on the corporate edition of QuoteWerks, which most of you should be, who got the link for the invite, the purchase order, the procurement module is included in the corporate edition of QuoteWerks. So this means that you'll be able to actually create a PO in QuoteWerks. And for those of you that have the real-time module, you'll also be able to place electronic orders. So in one step, when you are using the purchasing module in QuoteWerks, you're actually going to be able to create your PO for your vendor, create the electronic order and submit that to your vendor, and then we can also optionally export that PO that QuoteWerks just created and send that over to QuickBooks, Sage 50 US Edition, Autotask, or ConnectWise. So if you're using any of those 4 systems to manage your POs, we can actually export the PO automatically for you. Everything that we're talking about today is available in Chapter 19 of the QuoteWerks help file in the purchasing topic. So if there's something that you want more information on that we maybe just kind of touch on, you can go there for anything that we see today. For specific instructions on using like Autotask or ConnectWise or QuickBooks or Sage 50 purchase orders, just go to those specific topics in the help file. The next issue that we see a lot is order tracking. So a lot of companies struggle with being able to track orders. So the QuoteWerks Purchasing Module allows you to track all your orders in a single location. So you'll actually be able to track statuses, serial numbers, tracking numbers from the various shipping warehouses, seeing when it's shipped from the warehouse, those types of things. For the electronic orders, a lot of that's going to be automatic. So as that information comes in from Tech Data, Ingram Micro, Synex, D&H, it's also going to come in from those distributors automatically. Now, if you're not using those distributors, that's fine. You could still use a procurement module to actually put all of your tracking information in that single location. So you're not having to go to all these different websites to say, oh, well, where was that item from? Where was it shipping from? All this information you can actually keep in that single location. So we'll show you how that works as well. And then finally, one of the big ones is tracking ordered items. So items that you have previously ordered, whether it was a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, whatever it was, A lot of times you need to go back and find that item and find that information. Was it received? Did the client actually get it? What was the tracking number for that? What was the serial number for that information? So we're able to actually search and drill down to those specific items as well. So you'll have access to those. And this will have a complete history of every single item that's been ordered through the QuoteWerks Procurement Module as well. So some of the procurement module features, and this is just a quick list, you're able to create those electronic orders for the distributors, and you receive automatic updates like when it's shipped, if it's been received, those types of things. You'll have access to order tracking, so you can actually see serial numbers or post serial numbers, post tracking numbers, those types of things. We create those purchase orders. You can store serial numbers, you can add comments, you can receive items. We can actually update in QuickBooks, AutoTask, and ConnectWise when an item has been received, and we'll actually update that purchase order for you. You can close POs so that you have a complete process from creating the quote all the way to actually purchasing and fulfilling it and closing that PO. And like I said, being able to search those ordered items and storing those tracking numbers as well as seeing the shipping information. Okay, so let's go ahead and switch over to the live demo. Let me go ahead and change screens here. All right, so one of the first things that we wanted to talk about is being able to use a purchasing module. So in QuoteWerks, if you look at the toolbar, you should have a purchasing icon. If you don't see it, you just need to expand it. It's also available under your tools menu as well. So for tools purchasing, that'll open up the same window. Now, before we go there, very, very important, you'll see here I have a quote open and it's listed as a quote. And if we click on this document here, this one is an order. So I converted this quote to an order. And I did that by clicking on File, Convert to Order. That's a really important step because items will only be available for your purchasing if they exist on an order in QuoteWerks. That means that the quote has been closed, it's been accepted by the customer, you've converted that to an order, now those items are available in the purchasing. So if you skip that step, you will have no items from that order available in your purchasing module. So just keep that in mind. If you're new to the purchasing module and you haven't used it yet, that in order to actually use that functionality, you need to make sure that your items have been converted from a document of a quote to a document that's an order. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on our purchasing module window here. So when you click on the purchasing module window, if you have an open order like I do, it will actually default to the currently open order. So if you just wanted to create a PO just for these items, we could do that. This has all the same vendor, so I could technically create a PO just for this vendor, or if you want to batch orders, you can do that too. So we can click on multiple orders, and that will actually load up every single item that's available for purchasing. You'll see here you have a couple options so that we can make this a more manageable list. We can sort by vendor, we can sort by a specific customer, you can sort by a specific document number. So if you know the order number, you can actually put that in QuoteWerks and sort there. The item scope, this is just showing you items that have not been purchased yet. So if you want to view items that have been purchased, you can change the drop down. If you want to see the full list, you can do that as well. But typically, you'll just be looking at those non-purchased items. And then we have our dates. So if we wanted to sort by a specific date, we could do that as well. So for example, if we wanted to select a vendor, and we're just going to select Tech Data, and that's going to load up 221 items. So I don't want to purchase all the items from Tech Data that are in my ordering queue here. I just want to select a few. So the first thing I'm going to do is we'll just select these top 4 items here. And then you'll see down at the bottom, it says you have 4 items selected total with this amount of money. Now from here, I have a couple options. If you want to check the stock before you start the order process for a specific vendor, and this is going to be the same process whether it's Tech Data, Ingram Micro, Cenex, D&H. It works the same way. You can actually use the Utilize Panel button here, and this will open up the Utilize Panel button so you can check that item's stock just to make sure that it's still in stock from your vendor. And if you want to source it from a different vendor, maybe the price, your cost has dropped from a different vendor now. If you want to switch it to a different vendor, you can do that. For our example, I'm just going to go ahead and click on Place Online Order. Now, for those of you that are not using Tech Data, Ingram, Synex, or TNH, this process, really the only difference you're going to see is you would just go to straight to create PO for your vendor instead of the online order. We're basically going to place the online order and then go to that create PO process. So it's going to be essentially the same thing. So when we bring up that online order form, you're going to have a lot of options here. So the first thing is just the purchase order info. So like the PO number, description, how you're going to pay, how it's going to be back ordered handling for shipping, and then the ship on date. And then you'll see your line item information here. This is where you'll verify the current pricing availability. So when you click on that, that's actually going to go out to Tech Data and check your pricing and availability, see if this item is in stock, see if it still has the same cost, that type of thing. You'll also see there's a special instructions option. And here we go, our items have been updated. And we'll go over this in just a second. You'll also see that there's a special instructions. So the special instructions will allow you to essentially flag your order. And this works the same with any of the distributors, where if you need to have, maybe you have negotiated pricing or special pricing, you can put in here a note, you can put in here a quote number, you can put in here whatever you'd like, and it'll essentially automatically flag that order to be reviewed by an actual person. So when they review it, they'll actually see, oh, okay, this is in reference to this quote number that we negotiated pricing on. Yep, that's good to go. Additionally, down here, when you have verified your pricing availability, you can, if you scroll to the right, you can actually choose which warehouse you want to ship it to. So if it's an item you purchase a lot from and you know it's in stock there, you can actually select the warehouse from that vendor, and you can do that for all those items. The next step, you simply validate the order, and then you would submit the order. I'm not going to do those steps because this is live, so it would actually submit it and order it. So we're going to skip that, but you can see here, you basically validate and then submit, and it's good to go. Prior to that, you will just want to check the shipping information where it's going to be shipped to. Typically, it might be shipped to your location, or you might actually ship it direct to the customer. You have that option, and also like the end user information, and then my order tracker for the Tech Data users. So we're going to pretend I submitted the order to the vendor. Now, when you submit the order to the vendor, it's automatically going to open up the create purchase order window after that's submitted successfully. And this is where we're creating the copy in QuoteWerks. So we're creating that PO in QuoteWerks. For those of you that are not going to be using the distributors, when you click create PO, this is the window you're going to see. If you are set up to use QuickBooks, Sage 50, Autotask, or ConnectWise to manage your POs, you'll see here a checkbox that will also let you export this to that system. That way you're not having to create it in QuoteWorks and then go and manually create it in the system. Instead, you're just creating it that one time. So from here, you can put in your PO number. If you want to, in this case, leave it blank, and we'll just use the next QuickBooks PO number, you can do that. So if I wanted to just say, we're just going to put in a PO number, set the date, any kind of IDs or descriptions you want to put in, and then any ship to information. We're just going to use our location here, and any notes you might have, and then you can simply click OK. And then that will actually go through and create that PO in QuickBooks. And then once that's completed, we'll actually receive a notification that that PO was created. And then we can click on our purchase orders tab here. And this is where you'll actually see a list of all of your purchase orders. So this kind of goes to the next step that we were talking about, where you'll actually be able to, once you start creating purchase orders in QuoteWorks, you'll see a full list of all the purchase orders here, and you can sort by date. So for instance, if we wanted to do today, this would be the order that we just created. And when you click on that PO, it will load all the line items, in this case, 4 items that are on that PO. You could search by multiple dates. You can search by a specific vendor, description, order ship status. There's a lot of information in there. If we go back to the purchasing tab real quick, once an item has been assigned to a PO, it'll no longer appear in this purchasing tab under the non-purchased items, because it's essentially the PO has been submitted to the vendor. So again, for those of you that are using the electronic distributors, so Tech Data, Ingram Micro, Synex, TNH, will automatically, when you place that online order, will automatically create that PO for you. If you're not using those vendors and you just want to create a PO for another vendor, you can do that as well. So you'll actually be able to say, okay, for my demo items, I could select 3 items and say, all right, let's create a PO. And it brings up that PO, assign it a PO number. And then if you wanted to export it to QuickBooks, we could. I'm just going to go ahead and skip that step. And then that'll actually export that over to our purchase orders tab. And then if we go to our purchase orders tab, you'll see now I have 2 POs in there from 2 different vendors. And that'll give you the chance to sort by a specific vendor. So now that I have my POs in here, what I'm able to do is start updating them. When you're using the electronic orders, so from Tech Data, Ingram, Cenex, D&H, you can actually take advantage of these real-time icons up at the top, where you can say you want to get the real-time status for the selected order or for all orders. So if you want to say, hey, show me all my orders from this week, and it's just the 2. And if I wanted to get real-time status for all the orders, I could click on that, and that would actually go through any orders that I have from that specific vendor or from those specific real-time vendors. If I just wanted to update just my Tech Data one, I could just click on this icon and that will update it. And when it does that, it'll actually update the shipping information as well as any tracking information and possible serial numbers information that they have been assigned. You'll also be able to see that information here and where it's been shipped from, which warehouse, all that information, the estimated ship date, all that type of information will be available to you. Now, for those of you who are not using electronic ordering, you can actually still store that information here. So as you get emails from your vendor saying, hey, we're shipping on this date and here's the tracking number, you can actually come in here and say, okay, well, it's for this PO. So we'll click on our PO and it's for this item. So we'll choose tracking number and we'll say, you know, it's coming FedEx ground. Click OK. And then we'll put in the tracking number there and click OK, and you can see the tracking number is there. If you had multiple quantities of that item, you could add multiple tracking numbers, or if you have multiple tracking numbers that you need to add for that item, you'll have that available. Same thing with the serial number. As you receive the serial numbers, you can actually post those in here as well, and those will be available for you. And then you'll have the option, whether you're using the manual purchase orders or electronic purchase orders, to actually copy this information out. So if you want to then email this to your clients so that they have the tracking number information, you can do that. So again, for the electronic orders, a lot of this information is going to update automatically for you when you're using the real-time buttons. But even for these manual purchase orders, you're going to be able to collectively store this information in one spot that you can come in and quickly see the status of these items. And then as the items come in or they're fulfilled, you can actually mark them as received. Now, when you mark an item as received, you'll see there's an option to set some more information in there, such as like the date it was received, location, asset tag, MAC address, that information. And then we'll click OK. And then once you see that it's received, it'll tell you that it's one of one has been received, status has been shipped. And then you also see that it's been partially received now. So that's the status of this particular PO. Since one of the items has been received, it's actually been partially fulfilled. So we update it there for you automatically. And then we'll also give you the option, if you want to update AutoTask, ConnectWise, or QuickBooks, that this item has been received, you'll have that option. So for QuickBooks, you can right-click, and there's going to be an option when you've, I didn't export this one over to QuickBooks, so it's not going to appear, but there'll be an option to update received item in your accounting software. If you're using if you're using ConnectWise or AutoTask, when you right-click, there'll be an option that says updates item with or update marked item as received in those systems as well. So you have a lot of flexibility and you're able to kind of update as you get the information in. So when you come in here and you see that this has been updated, that you're marking this item as received, you can then update your PO in QuoteWerks, which will then push that information into QuickBooks and ConnectWise and AutoTask. When those items are received in QuoteWerks, they can also be pushed out to those systems also. And then finally, the Ordered Items tab. So the Ordered Items tab will allow you to search for any specific item that you have created a PO for. And you'll be able to sort by customer. You can sort by a specific PO number, a reference ID, a specific part number, specific document number, customer PO number. You can see there's quite a bit of fields you can choose from. And this just makes it really easy for you to see all items that have been ordered and which ones have been received, which ones haven't been received, anything like that. So it just makes it a lot easier for you to quickly see and update any items, or if you need to come back, especially for historical purposes, it's really great to be able to come in here and copy out tracking numbers or serial numbers, anything that had, especially as time goes on, you're not going to remember off the top of your head. You can quickly come in here and see that information. Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to talk about was sending the information to the customer. So we talked about being able to kind of copy this information out and then being able to share it with the customer. So you'll see here, when you click on an item, there's actually an option to email the tracking number. And when you click on this, this will actually open up the email window, and it'll send it to who you set as that customer. And then this will actually show you the tracking information for that item and the tracking number. And if you have multiple, it'll show it for those as well. You'll also see there's an option for a copy special where you can copy all serial numbers. Click OK. And then say we want to email the tracking numbers. And then maybe you also want to email the serial numbers as well. You can actually include that information as well. So you'll have the option to be able to copy and paste that data very quickly and actually open it and email it directly from QuoteWerks. You'll also have the option, if you click on the purchase order and you right click, you can email this PO. So if you wanted to maybe send a copy to your vendor manually, so you had created the PO originally in QuoteWerks, and now you actually want to send the PO to your vendor, you can right click and choose email vendor, and then this will show you this PO in QuoteWerks, and you can actually email it out. If you set up your vendors in QuoteWerks, the two will automatically be populated with your sales reps information. So it will include your your account rep at that specific vendor, their contact information, they'll automatically have it. So you'll be able to send that. Otherwise, you can simply type it in or do a search to pull them in. And then last thing I wanted to talk about here was being able to send this document over to, or to close this document out. So for a lot of companies, once you have received all your items, you want to go ahead and close out your PO. So you'll see there's an option. If you right click, you can close the PO. And we'll select today. And then we'll refresh. And you'll see my PO no longer appears in this list because it has been closed. So if I choose and close POs, we'll see that it's all been submitted. It's been partially shipped, but it's been marked as closed. Typically, you wouldn't do that until you've received all the items, but that's just showing you that you can close out the POs and that they will no longer appear in your purchase orders tab once you've shipped out or once you've closed out those particular POs. So it just makes it a lot easier to manage. And again, all we're trying to do is make things a little simpler, where instead of having to create a PO, send it to your vendor, and then export it over to your system, you can actually just create the PO by selecting the items in QuoteWerks. QuoteWerks creates the PO for you, and will send it over to like QuickBooks or Sage 50 US Edition or Autotask or ConnectWise for you. And then you can manage it in QuoteWerks, and then we'll actually update those systems for you as the items come in. So you can actually say, yes, this item was received. Yes, this item was received. Okay, then we can close that PO out and move on to the next one. And it just makes things a little easier where you're able to store all this information in one spot. Might make it a little less expensive for you as well. So you may not have to have people in as many people in your QuickBooks or in your purchasing, wherever you're managing your POs, since they can actually come here in QuoteWerks. If they have QuoteWerks licenses, they can just use this instead to view that information. By default, administrators have access to the purchasing module. Your regular users will not. So if you want to give a user that's in QuoteWerks access to the purchasing module, you will just have to give them access in the security settings. So under utility user maintenance, there's some security rights that you can provide them, and that will give them access to the purchasing module so that they can come in here and they can view that. But you do have full control over who has access in here, because it is obviously going to be very sensitive data that could be in here about, especially if you're placing electronic orders. You don't want just anyone placing orders with your distributors. You want only the ones who know exactly what they're doing, so that they can come in here, place those orders without having to have any special access or having to ask anyone. So, okay. So I see there's a ton of questions. I'm going to go over those as many as we can get done here in the next couple of minutes. For those of you that do have additional questions about the purchasing module, definitely feel free to give us a call or send us an email. We're always happy to answer those. Again, Chapter 19 in the QuoteWerks help file covers a lot of this, so you can see that information. For those of you that posted questions, just hang tight and I'll start answering those. If any of you do not have any questions, we're just at the time, so finished about 2 minutes early. So thanks for attending, and be on the lookout for that webinar link.